is just to give a quick opening. I know that we have a very good panel of specialists and a very intense agenda. I just want to remind you that we are now in the 5th day of this week of the General Assembly of the Tropical Agriculture Platform. And at the same time, we are in the middle of a pandemic in a very strange and unusual situation. We are all gathering this meeting from everywhere in the world, but mainly not from our offices. Myself, I am in my house in the Alps, in the Italian Alps, in the mountains. And so it's for all of us a very unusual and very strange situation. But when all this ends, the world will be different in the sense that we will all, and by all I mean the general public, not only the audience of this meeting today, we will all understand the role that science plays in our lives, in our societies, and also the role of our indicators as quick ways to understand the effectiveness of policies. Of course, we are not, I don't refer only to agricultural or policy indicators, but or to science, but the role of science will be highlighted by this pandemic. And this takes us immediately to our webinar today on the role of agricultural science, the role of technology indicators. As I said, we have a very important panel of speakers, and I wish you certainly a successful webinar. Having said that, I will give the floor to Rob Bertrand for his, from USAID. The webinar is co-organized by USAID and IFPRI. So Rob, you have the floor now for your opening for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Guido, and a big thanks to you and to the TAP chair, Ravi Khetrapal, for hosting us this morning. We're really happy to be part of your week of meetings. So I'd like to add my welcome to that from the Vice Chair. Please take a moment to introduce yourself. Manuela suggested you can do that, and I encourage you to do it as well. We're glad you're here, and we look forward to the discussion that will follow, where all of you will be able to share your questions, and we'll hope to have time for a good exchange of ideas and comments. I'm just going to make a few opening remarks to kick us off today. I think to begin with, a key issue is the centrality in our work of agricultural productivity growth. And when I say that, I don't mean yields only. Yes, yields are important, but it also means reduced post-harvest losses. It means market efficiency gains. It means resource use efficiency for water, energy, fertilizer. So it's really a central thing that drives economic growth across the economy, actually. And this is exciting, and I know we have one of the authors here today, but we had a new study from the World Bank in 2019 called Harvesting Prosperity. And that found that up to 4 times, the agricultural growth is up to 4 times more effective in reducing extreme poverty, and not just in rural areas, all across the economy. And why is that? Because the kinds of growth we're talking about here drives demand for locally produced goods and services, and it makes food more available and affordable, especially to the poor. So they benefit the most. So this is why it's so effective at reducing poverty. So if we're interested in driving agricultural productivity in this broad sense that I've talked about it here, and that could also be the value addition. I left that off of my list. That's another aspect of productivity growth. So if we want to drive that, we know that research, agricultural research, and the innovation that surrounds it and builds on it are really critical for achieving higher rates of productivity growth. And countries do this primarily through investments in agricultural R&D and extension systems. And of course, there's even work that shows that investing in agricultural research actually improves the effectiveness of other investments like extension. So when we think about innovation and research as drivers of productivity growth, it's important to keep in mind foundational principles of the Tropical Agriculture Platform, which basically is promoting agricultural innovation systems. Now, I think the key thing that makes innovation systems function is the fact that they connect different actors across the innovation chain, from users way back to the people who are first coming up with the ideas. And what we see when we get that demand, when we can be intentional about that, we see how important it is. And I want to just use an example from something that we are very involved in right now with the CGIAR system, which is something called the Crops to End Hunger effort. And it's basically modernizing and improving the breeding systems all across the CGIAR for crop improvement. But part of it is about prioritization, part of it is about technical excellence and modernization, digitization, this sort of thing. But it's also about linking to users. And it's the whole idea of product profiles. And to do that, you have to connect with the whole system. It could be millers and bakers, consumers, seed companies, a whole range of actors. So we're trying to be very intentional about that. And I think that's something that's applicable across a wide range of research. So one of the things that's helpful then, if we want to see this thrive and grow, this whole system of research and the innovation and utilization and growth that it drives, we need ways to measure it and maybe to incentivize it. And this is where I think ASTI's work comes in. It's a unique public good. It provides solid data and analysis, and increasingly ASTI, and we're going to hear about this today, I'm sure, is increasing its work through local and ownership of local actors. And of course, this is something that's very welcome from the standpoint of USAID, where we really want to see our partner countries embrace and own the kinds of innovations across the board in research, policy. It's all about country leadership. And we know that that this can then lead to better decision making. And it's not just at the national level. I think it can also be rolled up to the regional level. And we're going to have speakers today who are working at the regional level. And so we'll get some illumination about, how we can see efficiencies, not just within a country, but across a whole region. Last, I guess, just getting ready to close here, the point that I'd like to share is we know that investment and all kinds of public investments, and agriculture is no different, are political, these decisions. And of course, a lot of what we see in many countries, and every country is guilty of this, I'm not blaming anybody, that we often put money into kinds of subsidies or things that maybe support agriculture in a way, but don't necessarily enhance it and improve it. And what do I mean when I say enhancing and improving? I mean increasing productive potential, things like resource use efficiency I talked about, but also reducing risks. And when we get those two things together, what do we get? We get investment, public investment, roads pay off faster, private investment, companies have more reason to invest, farmers have more reason to invest. So it's all across the food system that we see that that driving aspect of productivity growth that's derived from research and innovation. So just closing up here with my notes. So I want to emphasize basically that public R&D, we know that there's many market failures in agriculture, especially in developing countries, but everywhere. Public agricultural research is important all around the world. So these still lie at the heart of agricultural innovation systems. And I encourage everyone to think about how we can, think about these very intentionally, and these research investments, and how to integrate our measures of them and the kinds of information that ASTI gathers into programs platforms like TAP or major investment programs like the CGIAR systems that span both the international centers and the NARs, and that can ultimately be public and private, of course. So I guess I'd like to move on to our panelists. And to get us started today, we have Dr. Gert Jan Staats. Gert is the Senior Program Manager of ASTI. And since 2002, he's been working on the agricultural science and technology indicators. I was talking before we got started with Gert. I've called it ASTI so long, I had to remember what it stood for, but I did remember, so I was proud of myself. So ASTI's outputs include a series of internationally comparable, peer-reviewed science and technology indicators, large sets of reports on the status and direction of agricultural research, which, as I said, is a really critical way for all of us to know what direction we're moving, what progress we're making, how fast. So Gert, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rob. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. So, well, good afternoon or good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And yeah, let me start by thanking everybody for taking the time to participate in this side event today. We haven't had an event like this in a while, and it's an important opportunity for us to showcase what we've been up to over the past couple of years with our partners. And yeah, let me also express special thanks to FAO and USAID for facilitating this event today. And we really appreciate USAID's support to ASTI, and we look forward to a fruitful discussion today. So next slide, please. Right, so I don't think I need to reiterate to this group that quantitative data is really essential to understanding the important role that agricultural research and innovation play in enhancing agricultural productivity and in reducing poverty. And I guess we all agree that policymakers and research managers and donor organizations and many other stakeholders, they need reliable data to analyze trends in investment and capacity in agricultural research and innovation, but also to identify kind of key gaps and neglected areas or to set future investment priorities. And this is precisely where ASTI comes in. So for those of you who aren't familiar with ASTI, as Rob just said, ASTI is a leading program globally that collects and analyzes data relating to agricultural research systems in low and middle income countries. And the program is led by IFPRI, but we operate through a very, very large number of partnerships with institutions in more than 90 countries. Next slide, please. Right, so this year marks the 20th anniversary of ASTI, but the program has actually changed quite a bit over time. In the early days of ASTI, we were mostly focused on data collection, but over the years, ASTI has developed into a much more comprehensive program that now consists of three main components. So first of all, the data component remains the key of our work, of course, but over time, we've also started focusing increasingly on more in-depth analysis of the data in close partnership with country experts and on ensuring that our outputs and key findings reach our stakeholders through targeted outreach activities. And it's very important to stress that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has been a major driver behind this expansion of ASTI over time. They've been ASTI's largest donor over the past 12 years, but unfortunately, their funding to ASTI came to a close earlier this year, and we're now exploring funding opportunities from alternative sources to sustain our activities, which has been quite challenging. Next slide, please. Yeah, so over the past 20 years, so ASTI has collected very detailed data from thousands of institutes around the world at regular intervals. Our research staff data is broken down by degree, by gender, discipline, age bracket, research area, etc. We also collect very detailed financial data. So what's the money spent on, who is it funded by? And in recent years, we've also started collecting detailed data on research output, so new varieties released, publications, etc. And all this information is compiled by us at the institute level, so not at the country level. So you can imagine this is a very labor and time-consuming effort, especially in larger countries with hundreds of individual agricultural research agencies. But over the years, we managed to establish a well-functioning network of very qualified country focal points who've done a great job in maintaining our data sets up to date and of very high quality. And I think it's fair to say that by today, ASTI is widely recognized as the authoritative source of information on the status and the direction of agricultural research systems in developing countries. And a large number of international and regional organizations are very big users of ASTI outputs. Over the years, our data sets have also been an important input to many donor organizations supporting large research projects or capacity strengthening activities. And they've also been an important input into the whole CAADP framework in Africa, for example, to track progress in agricultural research investment. But at the country level, there have been quite some impact stories as well. For example, quite a number of countries have taken the evidence that ASTI produced to successfully lobby for increased funding for agricultural research. But we'll hear some more of these country impact stories from the other speakers today. Next slide, please. Right, so despite the strong uptake of ASTI evidence at the global and the regional level, the overall uptake at the country level of ASTI outputs could still be improved, we feel, especially by key technical users who can adapt the analysis and deliver it to policy and decision makers. And one piece of critique that we've often received in the past is that our internationally comparable indicators are great for multilateral or regional organizations, but sometimes a little bit less useful for national level stakeholders who need data and analysis with more country-specific nuances. So in order to make our outputs more responsive to stakeholder needs and to align ASTI better with country and regional policy and planning frameworks, we've embarked on this new strategic direction that is that's focused on a much more demand-driven, decentralized, and partnership-based approach to collecting data, but also with much more focus on conducting country-relevant analysis and strengthening in-country capacity, and also on finding ways to embed ASTI evidence in policy and decision-making processes. So basically, we're gradually moving from this one-size-fits-all IFPRI-led approach to a much more devolved country and regional-owned approach of data collection, analysis, and outreach. Next slide, please. Right, so as part of this devolution of ownership and implementation of ASTI, we're in the process of establishing a number of regional hubs that coordinate ASTI activities. And different regions find themselves in different stages of this transition process. So for example, for our work in the Asia Pacific region, ASTI already successfully established a partnership with IFPRI 3 years ago, and Ravi can say a bit more about that in a minute. But basically, the IFPRI Secretariat in Bangkok is now responsible for maintaining a network of national ASTI focal points in the region and other stakeholders as well. IFPRI oversees the data collection. They organize stakeholder outreach events, while IFPRI's role is mostly on quality assurance, providing technical backstopping, developing communications, developing online tools, and providing training to IFPRI staff and country focal points. And IFPRI is also taking the lead in a number of in-depth analytical studies focused on the efficiency of national agricultural research systems and the long-term productivity impact of agricultural research investments. And we're also aiming to transfer these methodologies to capable people in IFPRI member countries so that they learn how to run these models themselves in the future. So following this successful partnership with IFPRI in Asia, We're now exploring a similar partnership with CORAF in West and Central Africa. And CORAF and ASTI already share a long history of cooperation, and Abdoulaye will say a bit more about that in a minute. But thanks to support from USAID, we now want to go one step further and really establish a regional ASTI hub at CORAF along the lines of what we achieved with AIFPRI. But devolving the ownership of ASTI doesn't only mean transferring to regional organizations, but also to the countries themselves, of course. So we therefore invited 2 additional speakers representing the national perspective today. Both India and Ghana are very good examples of countries that have taken important steps to make ASTI their own by institutionalizing data collection and embedding ASTI findings in agricultural policy and innovation processes. And in both India and Ghana, this has involved strengthening partnerships with key stakeholders. And Dr. Krishnan from India and Dr. Wilhelmina from Ghana will elaborate a bit further on their experience in a minute. Next slide, please. Right, so this is my final slide. So one final important point to stress is that ASTI's focus has traditionally been on the agricultural research and higher education components of agricultural innovation systems. So the part in the green square of this common framework diagram. We do feel, though, that by decentralizing the implementation and ownership of ASTI from IFPRI to selected organizations that are already operationalizing the TAP common framework, that the linkages between ASTI and other AIS initiatives will automatically become a lot stronger. Organizations like AIFPRI and CORAF, for example, don't only represent research institutions, but also extension organizations, farmer organizations, the private sector, etc. So the close connections that they have with all these other AIS partners will ensure that ASTI will become much better integrated into other AIS initiatives, and that ASTI evidence will ultimately become a more important tool for AIS capacity strengthening initiatives. But my colleagues from AIFPRI and CORAF will elaborate a bit further on that in a minute. Right, so that concludes my quick update on ASTI and its new strategic direction that can hopefully play an important role in strengthening AIS capacity. And with that, I would like to hand back the floor to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Gert. That was a great overview and really sets the stage for the following speakers as well. So thank you very much for that. So as Gert suggested, we're now going to move to the Asia Pacific region, and I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Ravi Khetarpal, who is the Executive Secretary of AIFPRI and Chair of TAP. And Dr. Khetarpal has a fantastic background, having worked at CABI for many years, and then in the Indian national system before that. He's a virologist, and he's worked around the world, been involved with FAO. He did his research from the University of Paris in virology, and has worked with INRA and other major organizations around the world. So thank you very much. It's great to have you here, Dr. Khetarpal, and I turn it to you.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Gert, for this nice introduction and for setting the stage. I also thank at the same time USAID and IFPRI for giving me an opportunity to showcase what AIFPRI has been doing with ASTI, which was beautifully highlighted by Gert. Without going much into the other things, I will directly like to come to business because we have a time constraint. May I have the first PowerPoint, please? Rather, I have only one PowerPoint. Okay, so my discussion for 10 minutes will be on these 5 bullets. I'll come on the background of the partnerships. Then what were the ASTI outputs from AIFPRI, and what we are doing in terms of strategic outreach and communication, and also how we are feeding this ASTI outputs into regional networks for comprehensive regional coverage. And finally, how we are trying to go beyond R&D, that is addressing innovation system, which is the core activity or function of TAP for a change. And at the As we all know, like at the APARI is very active in TAP since 2015, last 5 years. TAP itself is only 8 years old. And we know the common framework of TAP, the capacity development of agriculture innovation system, is at the core of TAP. APARI has imbibed TAP's principle at the central stage of its functioning. And we are one of the rare research organizations where it has come up in all the activities of APARI. Coming to ASTI, ASTI is a very important input into capacity development initiatives, like Garjan had highlighted, and it's very important for the region. In fact, I may be allowed to say it is one of the most innovative programs by itself, where we can evaluate the role of research investment towards national agriculture growth and economy, both in qualitative and quantitative terms. Having said that, APARI finally becomes the logical long-term home for ASTI in the Asia-Pacific region. And APARI maintains a very close linkage with the National Agriculture Research and Extension System and other agriculture innovation system players. In fact, we have more than 80 members in APARI, out of which 21 are the National Agriculture Research and Extension System members, which are countries within the region. This facilitates data collection and outreach, and also ensures a better integration of ASTI into broader agriculture innovation system initiatives at the regional and at the country level. The APARI-ASTI partnership, I'm happy to say, was funded by Australian Centre of International Agriculture Research, and our ASTI coordinator, Dr. Nora Omot, who has worked closely with Dr. Garjan, who could not be present because it may be past midnight for her in Papua New Guinea, from where she is working. We started work in APARI in 2017, collected detailed data from more than 300 agencies in Southeast Asia and Pacific countries. In fact, there are 10 countries which is being taken care of through APARI, of which 2 are in the Pacific. That is Papua New Guinea and Fiji. Rest are the Southeast Asian nations. And we produce a lot of quality publications, an online database, and accomplished a lot. ASTI has actually become a flagship project of APARI over the last 3 years. Now, coming to the ASTI outputs from APARI, I will highlight some of the very key points which may be taken as a success stories. There's Institute of Policy and Strategy for Agriculture Research and Development, which is the agriculture think tank in Vietnam, is currently incorporating the finding of ASTI's forward-looking research investment scenario and their projected impact on future agricultural productivity growth in Vietnam's agriculture and rural development strategy for 2020 to 30, and the country's vision document for 2045. This is a fantastic thing which has happened in terms of policy, we find, as an outcome of working with IFPRI on this project. In Laos and in PNG, Papua New Guinea, ASTI evidence is an important input into the development of the country's medium-term agriculture development strategies. It's another achievement we find in terms of a policy uptake from what we have given as an output. ASTI outputs are to inform also the development of the Indonesian Ministry of Agriculture's strategic plan. The Ministry of Agriculture in Indonesia has shown a lot of interest in the analysis and on the efficiency of R&D institutes and the research efforts needed to achieve self-sufficiency in a broader range of commodities. Besides that, I'm happy to say in Philippines also, the Philippine Council of Agriculture, Aquatic and Natural Resources Research and Development Institute called PCAR, it has a socio-economic research division which is increasingly focused on technology forecasting. they see ASTI as an important component of this shift and are planning to integrate ASTI data collection as part of their ongoing activities. So we see very clearly within 3 years, of the 10 countries we had been working, 5 have shown importance to the ASTI output and how they are trying to have a policy institutionalization in their countries, which is a very, very satisfactory outcome we see in the ASTI project achieved within a short period of time. Right now, we finished the first phase of ASTI project, which was for 3 years. We are into a strategic outreach and communications plan, and we are in the midst of large-scale outreach activities in the region. This is because we just released the flagship regional synthesis report, and next week itself, we will have 2 large webinars, one for national agriculture research and extension leaders and key in-country stakeholders, and one for the regional stakeholders, such as Asian Development Bank, such as Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or Southeast Asian Regional Center for Graduate Study and Research in Agriculture, what we call SIARCA, and United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia Pacific, the UNESCAP. Now we are following this current large-scale outreach activities. Much more uptake of ASTI evidence and impact stories are expected in the coming months. We also will be working with the regional partners, as I mentioned, to ensure that ASTI evidence feeds into regional processes. This will allow a comprehensive regional coverage of ASTI in Asia Pacific. And coming to the last point of mine, ASTI evidence for policy making, going beyond R&D and addressing innovation system is what we are looking for. IFPRI can ensure broader partnership platform beyond agriculture R&D for increased relevance and utility of ASTI by increasing individual capacities and blending the technical skill acquired by ASTI staff in every country, by blending their technical skill with the functional capacities of what we do on the Sea Guys project, of TAP, of all those engaged in ASTI. Also, we can build institutional capacity apart from ensuring an enabling environment for policy institutionalization of IFPRI, because enabling environment policy capacity building is the most important part of the functional capacities which we built under the Sea Guys program of TAP. Now, ASTI program can be embedded in agriculture policy and decision-making process going forward through IFPRI's networking and partnership in the region with country partners, international organizations, and sub-regional bodies such as South Asia Association of Regional Cooperation or Secretariat of Pacific Community, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, many higher education institution sectors, all of which are partners of IFPRI. With this, I would like to conclude saying that ACIR is committed to support IFPRI for its next phase for other countries also. We may extend work in the Pacific region also. ASTI has strengthened IFPRI and vice versa. We have a beautiful symbiotic relationship, a win-win for both. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this shows the network of IFPRI members which ASTI can benefit in terms of the mandate of ASTI in the Asia Pacific region. These are the IFPRI members to whom we are always grateful for being fidel to IFPRI. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ravi. And wow, I have never seen as many logos as you just showed on that slide. That is really something. You are a well-networked organization. Great. So now we're going to shift to Sub-Saharan Africa. And I'm really delighted to introduce our next speaker, who is Abdoulaye Diallo. Abdoulaye is the Director of Research and Innovation at the West and Central Africa Council on Agricultural Research and Development, which I think is better known by its French acronym, CORAF. So Abdoulaye is, as I said, Director of Research and Innovation. He served as the coordinator of the African Cassava Initiative, at Agronomy Initiative at IITA. And he's also worked at as Natural Resource Management Program in at CORAF. And he's from Sierra Leone, where he was Deputy Director General of the Sierra Leone Agricultural Research Institute. So welcome, and over to you, Abdoulaye.
Thank you very much, Rob. It's a huge honor for CORAF and myself to be associated with this initiative. And I only hope CORAF will be able to follow the footsteps of IFPRI in trying to institutionalize ASTI in West and Central Africa and Africa as a whole. Next slide. My presentation will talk about CORAF's coverage. I'll talk briefly about the partnership of CORAF and ASTI over the years, and steps that we want to take to mainstream ASTI activities within the CORAF region. Next. That is the map of Africa, and the colored area you are seeing is West and Central Africa, comprising 23 countries. That is the mandate area of CORAF. I mean, under the auspices of the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, our sister organizations, NASRO in the north, Asarika in the east, and CADESA in the south. CORAF has a population of, the West and Central Africa region has a population of over 400 million, and then over 65% of that population depend on agriculture. I mean, that it's a no-brainer to tell you that if you really want to go into the system, want to impact the greater majority of the people in the region, so agriculture is definitely the area to go. And CORAF, as a research organization, has a mission to improve the productivity, competitiveness, and market of the agricultural system in West and Central Africa. We have a diverse food systems. Of course, the challenges are there. Next. And because to deliver on that mission, CORAF has identified 4 results. That is increased use of appropriate technologies and innovation, increased uptake of strategic decision-making options for policy, institutions, and market, enhance institutional and human capacity in agricultural research for development, and demand for agricultural knowledge for target clients met. It is absolutely, CORAF is trying to do this through the innovation platforms. I mean, and we are all aware of the fact that through the innovation platform, you have a whole lot of stakeholders, and it is important that the capacity of all stakeholders need to be improved to be able to collaborate and achieve their shared goals and visions. Next. I will now talk a little bit about the experience in collaboration between CORAF and ASTI. Since 2002, CORAF has facilitated 5 ASTI survey rounds in West and Central Africa by connecting IFPRI with National Agricultural Research System and by providing ASTI with a platform to present findings. During 2012 to 2014, CORAF and ASTI carried out an ECOWAS Commission assessment of the critical human, financial, and institutional capacity issues of the National Agricultural Research Systems in Benin, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo. Next. The slides there shows you, I mean, data from ASTI, Funding Agricultural Research. If you look at that graph, it tells you that we are not only below the target of 1%, but the West Africa region, the green line there, is below the rest of Sub-Saharan Africa. We have been able to use this evidence to engage policymakers at both national and regional levels to tell them that, I mean, the agricultural research sector is not receiving the due attention it has. Next. Another important data that we have used is that of the number of researchers in countries, and particularly the age of researchers. This graph shows that in most of the countries, I mean, if you can look at the green there, these scientists are aging, and I mean, you will agree with me that it is important that we have a steady and smooth flow of scientists across the region. But it happened that this study clearly reveals that the majority of the researchers are getting older. And in fact, the data shows that over 50% of the PhD holders in the region are nearing retirement. And you would definitely want to make sure that you address this issue. We have been able to use this data, and through the West Africa Agricultural Productivity Program that was funded by the World Bank, we are able to engage country partners and inform them about the status of the age of researchers and encourage them to invest in training agricultural research. I am very happy to tell you that the WAP program was able to train over 1,000 researchers at postgraduate level, master's and PhD. And I'm also very happy to inform you that 28% of that number were women. So I'm very happy that we've been able to use this data and engage policymakers, and we are moving towards having positive impact on decision making. Next. So where are we going, and how do we want to make sure that we'll be able to emulate what AIFPRI has done in West Africa? I would just want to provide some evidence that I think the foundation has been laid, the framework is there to ensure that we'll be able to perpetuate and continue to use ASTI. CORAF is taking up the position of a strategic knowledge hub for agricultural research and development in Western Africa. We currently have just initiated a new program with USAID, Innovation, Research, Extension, and Advisory Coordination Hub, dubbed IRICH. This initiative is basically for CORAF to help USAID to coordinate its research and development activities in the region, particularly those through the innovation labs in West Africa. I think a lot has been done through this initiative. CORAF is also coordinating the establishment of technology parks, where technologies that are developed through these USAID funded projects and other donors could be showcased, and we will have access to them. We have been providing strategic support for the national and regional investment plans under the CADAP. The ASTI framework, we believe, will play a significant role in CORAF, meeting the growing need for relevant data to inform key decisions by governments and the regional economic communities. CORAF already has a web-based M&E and knowledge management system that can easily accommodate the ASTI component. I think this is absolutely important. It means there is already a framework, there is something we can rely on, and there's something we believe we can take forward. In addition to that, there are country focal points now facilitating CORAF's national interests. Like Jan said, I mean, if IFPRI, ASTI have been depending on national focal points, I mean, providing them with some funds to make sure that they collect relevant data. We are trying to mainstream this through our focal institutions, the national research institutions in the region, to make sure that we have focal points that can assist in collecting data. This means that a solid foundation for evidence-based decision-making and capacity development for effective agricultural innovation system will have been established. If you look at the map on the right there, even CORAF itself, because our new mode of operation is using strategic research institutions with a comparative advantage in the region to lead the others, because we are aware from the ASTI data that there is disparity in the capacity of the various agricultural research systems. And the strategy is to make sure that we identify those that have the capacity to lead the others. And for now, CORAF has identified 9 regional centers of specialization based on commodities. And I can tell you that we used capacity of these individual research institutions was one of the criteria that was used to identify them. And the ASTI data was very useful in this. If you look at the picture on the bottom right, I mean, like it has been said, data is data, yes, but you want this data to be used to inform policy making. If you look at CORAF has the privilege and the opportunity to enjoy the confidence of the regional economic community and various national governments in the region. This was one of CORAF's occasions across the region. On the far left there, that is the Commissioner for Agriculture of the Regional Economic Community, ECOWAS. In the middle is the Permanent Secretary of the Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria. On the right, that is the Executive Director of CORAF. So we have this big opportunity, and we believe if we can strengthen this linkage with the national and regional policymakers, whom I think we are enjoying their confidence, we will be able to use this ASTI data to inform policy making and improve agricultural development in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abdoulaye, for that great overview of the work of CORAF. Great to hear the progress on gender and that you're emphasizing that. And also, I'm very grateful, I speak for all my colleagues, for our partnership around iReach. The innovation labs that Abdoulaye referred to are university-led partnerships that collaborate with NARS scientists around the topics that are relevant to the individual countries. And it's great to see that rolled up to a regional hub now as well. So our next speaker, now we're going to shift to the country level. And our next speaker is Dr. Wilhelmina Kai. She is the Director for Science and Technology Policy Research Institute at the CSIR in Ghana. She holds her PhD from the Wageningen in rural sociology and a master's and a BSc from the University of Ghana. She's a fellow of the African Women in Agricultural Research and Development, the award program, which is such a terrific effort. And it's great to have her here. She comes out and also worked before at the CSIR Food Research Institute as a research scientist in food and nutrition. So it's great to have those perspectives brought to our panel. Welcome, Wilhelmina, over to you.
Thank you. Can I have my, yes, so can I have my slide, please? Good. No, Ghana. Evidence in action in Ghana.
I think it's up now.
Good. Yeah, thank you. And I must thank the organizers for this opportunity given us to actually tell our story. It's good to hear the story from the people who are benefiting from ASTI. Embedding ASTI evidence in Ghanaian science and technology governance and policy making. Next, please. So I will give you an evidence in action, actually. Realize that ASTI evidence has informed agricultural research and development, innovation, decision making here in Ghana. And to tell you what, ASTI data actually helped us to convince our policymakers to know that our human resource base for agricultural research and also in the innovation system was actually inadequate. And as our previous speakers have shown, the data was really speaking to the fact that the human resource needed to be strengthened. And we were able to convince our policymakers to lift a ban on research recruitment in 2017. And as I speak, there are plans to give us, actually giving us quotas for 2021 to recruit. Now, the emphasis is on research. And so coming from our policymakers, they also emphasize that we should give the quotas to our research. as opposed to the non-core research staff. It's also on record that this has reflected in our human resource policy here in CSIR. And also we have been using ASTI data to bring home to the point that we need to invest in our research systems, research and innovation system. And so back here in Ghana, we have been able to convince our policymakers to increase investment in agriculture by way of establishing a national research fund for S&T investment to be able to meet the targets that we have set for ourselves in a commitment that we have also committed to in ECOWAS systems. Now, however, important data fragmentation and data gaps remain as an issue, and also sustainability. And so building an ASTI partnership for action here in Ghana is very much dear to us. We first of all ask these questions: how do various stakeholders in the science, technology, and innovation system are leveraging each other in terms of data? Because we are moving into the realms of open data. How do we create synergies to be able to make sure that we make use of resource efficiency in everything that we do? The guiding principle being efficiency. Next, please. Next. So, building an ASTI platform, partnership platform in Ghana, we first of all had the opportunity to conduct research in stakeholder mapping, also mapping policy influencers for influential pathways, and also identify capacity gaps in the science, technology, and innovation system. Here you have a diagram showing the effective ASTI partnership platform here in Ghana. That is transition from the traditional way of ASTI being championed by IFPRI and now moving the ownership to the local levels. And indeed, if for nothing at all, COVID has shown us that we need to build local systems. So for this platform, we have the various categories of the actors, CSI, ASTI. We are looking at identifying and building national partnerships, coordinating data collection, coordinating and conducting data analysis, coordinating and conducting outreach programs, and ensuring that we have good quality data, because research evidence is also a matter of quality, so that we'll be able to push our policymakers to actually utilize the evidence that we churn out. Also, getting connected with CORAP, as has already been said, linking Ghana platform to other national platforms, also conducting outreach nationally and regionally, and that connects us to the CORAP. In terms of this partnership, we are looking at a position where IFPRI would strengthen us with technical backstopping, and also look at the coordination and analysis, the techniques, divulging it into the local system and making sure that we have a strong research team to do what it takes to be able to generate quality data for research evidence. We are also looking at the synergies for other existing initiatives. That is existing initiatives in terms of national partnerships, also in collecting, processing, and providing for in-country for data, for evidence-based research policy making, and also making sure that we link up to our developmental planning systems. And here in Ghana, data is one of the challenges that we are facing for developing the agricultural system, which is very key because about 60% of or more of our populace is into agri. And when we go into the rural system, we could have a situation where in a particular village, you have more than 90 people in the agricultural system. For us, poverty reduction is about reducing the losses in agriculture, making sure that you have data to back up any kind of interventions that we undertake in the agricultural system. Next, please. Next. Yeah, so the actions have so far been capacity building in the procedures, methodologies, tools, and quality standards in data collection, determinants of efficiency and impact of agricultural research and innovation system, tools and methods for decision making and analysis. Next action is the networking and partnerships, which we have done the mapping study to identify the key stakeholders and especially the strategic partners that we can use to influence policy. The goal is to enhance and harmonize efforts to ensure synergies in our system. And lastly, to talk about institutional issues, ownership of data is key for us. And as I mentioned earlier, this is what the COVID is pointing us to. We should take ownership of our agricultural sector data, and especially the innovations and new systems that are coming up to be able to inform policies and also ensure that our development trajectories are based on quality data and data products that we in IFPRI and other partners are very much engaged to do. So this is my presentation, and I hope I've been able to convince the panel members and those of you here that actually we have enjoyed so much from ASTI, and it's been very beneficial for our development planning system. And moving on in the transition process, we want to say that we need the support, still the support for future endeavors from ASTI. With us together, that we strengthen our partnership in action for development planning and development decision-making purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mina, and thanks for such a clear statement of how a country is working with ASTI and really benefiting it. And it was so clear in how you laid it out. So thank you for that. So now let's head back to Asia for our last speaker, who is Dr. Pandian Krishnan. Pandian is the principal scientist in the research management systems at the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. He comes out of the marine and coastal area of aquatic foods and works in the Andaman Islands at Port Blair in the Andaman Islands. And he's worked on coastal bioresource conservation, fisheries resource management, aquatic environment health, and conservation planning and policy. So it's great to have that community represented here as a connector and a user and contributor to ASTI. So thank you, and over to you, Dr. Krishnan.
Thank you so much, and greetings of the day to all the dignitaries here who have joined. And particularly thanks to Dr. Gert for setting the stage and for the special side event. So the Indian Council of Agriculture Research has been working very closely with ASTI for the last 15 years. So currently we have completed 4 rounds of surveys. So the experience of this partnership had been very different. Like in the first 3 surveys, it was different. And then we had a significant strides of institutionalization in the last round. The reason for slower institutionalization probably could be because of the fact that India had a very structured institutionalized process for collecting national S&T surveys for a very long time. The Department of Science and Technology had established the National Science and Technology Management Information System as early as 1970s. So, but the inadequacies were the data structure was very weak, the data sets were very few, and the responses were also not as good as the way that we could manage in the last few years with ASTI. So the responses were in the range of 30 to 40% only. So in the initial years when we partnered with ASTI, the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, together we were always trying to engage with the Department of Science and Technology to have a bridging so that our data sets are used for policy making. But after a few years, once we could prove our prowess, the order of our responses, the intensity of data, all this, the utility of their utility of this data for various policy domains, then in the last year, we could just have the Department of Science and Technology has come forward, the agricultural related data sets will be collected by ASTI and NAM partnership. So the remaining data sets will become collected by them. So the current system is fully the ASTI data sets have been integrated into the Government of India's core data sets. So that's a huge stride that we could have in the last 1 year. And particularly, and this partnership is not only for the past, so this has been established, it is going to be the order of the day for the years to come. And the next round, that is 2020-21, has already been awarded to us. So we'll be doing it together for the Government of India. And this partnership has enhanced the visibility and use of ASTI outputs and helped in integrating the outputs to the various policy making things. So this is the report that we get by the Government of India, and the data sets which are here are same as what is there with ASTI. So both are same, and we have been. Next one, please. So the in nutshell, the ASTI data are currently the official Government of India data for agricultural S&T, and which form the base for entire policy making across the sectors. And concurrently, during this particular period, the last 5-6 years, the focus of government has been to set a competitive split among the research and academic organizations. And they have, government has launched separate ranking frameworks for academic institutions, separate ranking framework for the research and innovation organizations in the entire country. And incidentally, the agriculture-related academic institutions and the research organizations, the entire data sets were available with our ASTI platform. So when these platforms were launched in the entire country, the ASTI data sets were so conveniently and seamlessly they were getting, and then they were fed into these national frameworks. And the most recent one being the one which was launched by the Government of India's, that is Prime Minister's Office, has conducted this survey among the scientific organizations. And we had an opportunity to even share our ASTI experiences, even when the frameworks were being developed by the national think tank Niti Aayog. So this learning had a kind of an impact in terms of structuring this data collection framework and then in institutionalization as well. Next one, please. And based on the entire learning that we had in the last few years, we have come out with two kind of innovations. We should say as Gert was mentioning, the ASTI has been transitioning from IFPRI-led to country-led and country-owned. So these are the two innovations we can say we did together, which has a relevance to other network partners as well. So we have developed a dashboard. We named it as Drive Data-Driven Research and Innovation Virtual Ecosystem. This platform, the whole idea was to provide some meaning of the data to the data provider. At the institution level, some decisions that can be taken. Next one, please. To get an overview about the entire research happenings that are there, the number of publications, publication trends over a temporal period, the human resources, and if we can benchmark the institutions against various organizations comparable and ranking them, determining the research efficiencies to see the research influence. Here we added value by putting the citation, other data sets from the Web of Science and SciVal platform that were also integrated into this dashboard, so that the organization which are providing basic input data will also benefit in terms of additional data sets, additional research insights that will help them in planning where to invest more, in which particular areas there is a need for investing, and how the research focus has to be And the design of this entire dashboard has been made in such a way that it can be easily replicated to the needs of other countries as well. Next. While working very closely with the entire ASTI team for the earlier dashboard, we realized the entire, particularly when we are working on the research efficiency determination, the research output is not only the function of the tangible inputs which are captured by most of the global platforms, not only ASTI, most of the national and global platforms, they capture the tangible inputs and the tangible outputs quantitatively. So there is an element of intangible input that also has a significant influence on the amount of research output comes, like research leadership, governance, and research culture. So we thought having made some significant strides in terms of institutionalization of the ASTI framework and then particular dashboard, we thought we can try to plug in this particular gap as well. And then we are currently working on developing a methodological framework for ease of doing research. So wherein we intend to capture the perception of the scientists at the institution level, how far they are happy or unhappy with in terms of research leadership, adequacy of the funds, competency of the human resource, research culture, etc. So that put together with the quantitative data available in the ASTI platform in terms of tangible inputs, we can combine this and then try to relate how the research inputs can be further strengthened, how they can be further improved. So in a nutshell, the partnership has been profoundly useful, win-win partnership for both ASTI, IFPRI, as well as for us. And we foresee these two particular innovations that we have done together, that is the Drive dashboard as well as the methodological framework for ease of doing research, will have significant relevance to all the network partners of AIFPRI and then the whole ASTI network. And we would like to work together with this entire network and then take forward and see how this can be of more meaningful policy-making tool to the entire mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Krishnan. Really appreciate those perspectives. It's impressive to see how ICAR is using the system and innovating further on its own. It's wonderful. So now I'd like to turn for some very quick comments to a couple of people. First to our co-sponsor, and I hope we can keep this to a minute or two so we can have time for Q&A. And so let me start by turning to Channing Arndt. Channing is the head of the division that we're partnering with at IFPRI on this. And Channing, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here. So as you mentioned, I'm the director of the Environment and Production Technology Division at IFPRI. And it's a pleasure to be here and to hear these presentations. I'm told that here that the ASTI is the longest ongoing program in the CGIAR, and I'll wait to be corrected on that, but it is for sure the authoritative source for data on ag research globally. And we've seen these global, regional, and country level impacts. And I wanted to give a shout out to Nienke Bentema for playing a key role in this success. I think she's online right now. And now we have this new ASTI that Gert-Jan is taking forward. You know, country and region led and owned, demand driven, institutionalized, and embedded in local institutions for policy relevance. And I think we're already seeing that in a number of cases. I just want to make just a couple of points, a few points. This new vision for ASTI involves a relatively small secretariat that productively interacts with countries and regional organizations such as AIFPRI and CORAF. You know, as noted by Ravi, this AIFPRI ASTI partnership is a win-win, and we think we can build on this, for example, with Abdullahi and CORAF in West Africa for a similarly successful partnership. We are in the middle in the CGIAR of a very ambitious CGIAR reform process. And this process has an enormous upside. And trying to realize this upside has been a significant share of my time for about a year. And this is also true for Rob Bertram, I'm sure. But you know, genuine operations for CGIAR begin in January 2022 with an active program, you know, building up through time. So there are some worries about a fiscal cliff, which is generalized, but also applies to ASTI. You know, and as Gert-Jan mentioned, it is a bit unlucky that BMGF support completed just at the beginning of the CGIAR reform process rather than just at the end. There is no doubt, I think, that we want and need something like ASTI. We don't want to let it collapse, then have to reinvent it several years later at a high financial cost and losing years of consistent data. So, you know, ASTI has in sum this strong base and reputation to build on, a new operation model that I think is really appropriate for today. This emerging strong base in the form of a reform CGIAR that has powerful incentives to support an efficient and effective ASTI secretariat. And with this secretariat, I think we have excellent prospects for realizing new strategic vision where key roles are played by countries such as India and Ghana and regional organizations such as AIFPRI and CORAF. At the same time, we're in the midst of a transition with some genuine risks. ASTI as a long-running organization has developed many friends, and we thank USAID and Rob Bertram for helping to organize this workshop. And we're reaching out to friends to navigate this transition period and bring the compelling vision of the new ASTI to fruition. So we're very pleased you attended this workshop, and we look forward to working with you over the coming year to bring about an effective ASTI program that works globally. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Channing, and thanks for co-hosting, co-sponsoring this with us, and also for the shout out to Nienke. I'm thrilled she's in the audience. It's great to know. So welcome, Nienke. And I'd like to next turn to Keith Fugly. Keith is an economist with the Economic Research Service, and he's another kind of ASTI data user. So Keith, over to you, please.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, just very briefly. So I would say I'm a sort of an analytical consumer of ASTI data. I sit over here at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and I and my colleagues at USDA have used ASTI data to drill down and conduct a number of studies over the past few years to look at long-term sources of agricultural productivity growth in India, in China, in Indonesia, in Brazil, in Egypt, and in sub-Saharan Africa. And what these studies have shown is that, the long-term growth in productivity is really dependent on these, having these strong capacities in national agricultural research, and particularly in the African case, that linking national agricultural research with international centers like the CGIAR is a way to really boost the effectiveness of both systems, that there are real synergies when these systems can work together. And so the ASTI data has provided a foundation for understanding how investments in agricultural research help keep that innovation pipeline full, and how these investments can be better managed, both at the international and national level, to make these systems more effective. And, a lot of this work was brought together in a nice publication by ASTI, just published a few years ago. This focused on Africa. It's African agricultural research in Africa, investing in future agricultural harvests. I think this publication is a good example of how ASTI contributes to our better understanding of how agricultural research contributes to growth. It's chock full of information on how these resources can be better managed and invested to achieve those outcomes. So just back to you, Rob.
Thank you so much, Keith, and appreciate those insights from an important user group. So now let's open it up for the questions. I see we have several in the chat box. We'll start out with one from Roland Asare. He says, a lot has been said about the great impact ASTI has had on agricultural innovation systems. However, I'm looking forward to a system which also captures the end user's perspectives and impressions of ASTI. This, I believe, will make the story complete. Could the panelists comment on this one? Maybe just very quickly, if you'd like to come in, would you just jump in? I can't quite see you when I'm, but please, all our panelists can unmute, and if any of them would like to speak about this end user perspective, I think some of you actually did that. But let me just ask if anybody'd like to add anything.
Can I come in, Rob?
Of course, Ravi, welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Well, that's a very pertinent question. And I mentioned the 5 countries where we could make a mark, and whatever we have said, there's an evidence, end users evidence, whatever ASTI's evidence has gone into their national development strategies, in their vision document, in their whole planning processes. For 5 countries, I think that is an end user's version, what I mentioned. I didn't have beautiful PowerPoints, I had just one, so probably I didn't enter clearly, but yes, we do have clear evidences of that, at least from 5 countries.
Excellent. No, I appreciate that's a good illustration. Anyone else want to briefly comment? We do have other questions, but I think it's great to know that interest is there, but also that it's playing out in real time.
Yeah, can I reiterate on the Ghana's experience, because we have clearly indicated that we use the ASTI evidence to convince our policymakers to give us that window for recruitment. And I think that is a great evidence also. Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. I mean, that's music to the ears of all the partners, I think, because at the end of the day, it's decision makers who we really want to influence in a positive feedback loop. Okay, we have a question from John Ruan to everyone. He says, great presentations. he says two questions. Can Gert-Jan expand on what the different kinds of roles that ASTI plays in the new devolved system? And two, how can sustainability of the devolved systems be ensured at the regional level? Okay, always something on all our minds. Gert, would you like to come in on that, please?
Sure. I like how you pronounce my name. Very, very accurate. Thanks. No. Yeah. Well, as I said, like we're different regions are in different stages of this transition process, right? So like in AIFPRI, we've already started decentralizing and devolving the ownership of ASTI 3 years ago, while in West Africa with CORAF, we're only just starting right now. But basically, the idea is that that the regional organizations, they become the key implementers of ASTI at the regional level, right? So they're in charge of building this network of country focal points, implementing data collection activities, doing all the outreach activities in the region, because they're much better connected with all the key stakeholders in those regions than IFPRI traditionally is. And IFPRI's role is gradually evolving to one that's more focused on quality assurance, maintaining a global, internationally comparable data set, providing technical, backstopping technical support, and developing various online tools as well. So, and a very important role as well for IFPRI is to kind of provide capacity strengthening training for the regional implementers like AIFPRI and CORAF and country focal points as well. And one very important point as well is the training of in-country analysts, right? So to really kind of familiarize them as well with the analytical concepts and the methodologies that we use for some of our forward-looking investment scenarios and their impact on productivity or the efficiency of NARS, et cetera, as well. So that's kind of, IFPRI's role is gradually changing to one more focused on capacity strengthening, but that the regional organizations, they come to the forefront and they kind of increasingly become the face of ASTI, so to speak. Thanks.
That's great. It's really a great evolution that's occurring. A very clear answer. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I forgot the second half of the question. Oh. How can sustainment of the devolved system be ensured at the regional level? And I think that that Abdoulaye actually gave a very good example in his presentation today. Like in one of his slides, he said that that CORAF already has a web-based M&E and knowledge management system in place, right? So that can easily accommodate the ASTI component. And I think the same can be said for AIFPRI and some of the other regional organizations. So it's like we just need to find a way to find our synergies and see like how we can best integrate ASTI in those existing M&E systems that already exist in those countries and kind of incorporate those. Thanks.
Yeah, it's sort of a mainstreaming idea, I think.
Exactly.
And of course, the utility and the value that's derived is ultimately the thing that will sustain it. Okay, another question from Isaac Daniel. ASTI support for regional and national data management and innovation has been clearly shown in Asia and Africa. What is the structure for data ownership and governance in this tri-level institutional partnerships, especially when planning business models for data clients? Who would like to tackle that one? Have any volunteers? So he says, what is the structure for data ownership and governance in this tri-level institutional? So regional, ASTI, and national connections. So maybe okay, Ravi, and I was going to say maybe Abdoulaye can comment on that as well. Ravi, please.
Thank you, Rob. When we started the project with IFPRI, we had a data ownership agreement with IFPRI. And then we had data ownership agreement with each of the countries where we had to work. So practically it is trilateral, and everything, the donor has an access also, ACIR, which is funding the whole project. So data ownership is with the country, with CGIAR, and with AIFPRI. So it is with everyone, I mean.
Well, that's interesting. So it's a shared ownership.
Yeah, maybe I can just add to that it's ASTI is actually a global public good, right? So it's like It's everybody's data.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's...
I think it's a shared ownership, but also to stress the fact that it's more decentralized structure and also allows for country to country or regional level comparison. And that is very key, because if you have the regional level comparison, then our policymakers will know that, yes, we are lagging behind if we don't do something about our situation. It actually helps in influencing.
Okay,
Yes,
great. Well,
Rob, can I come in?
yes, come on in, Abdullah.
Yeah, I think Jan said, I mean, ASTI as it is now is a public good, I mean, which is good. I think we'll need to take it from there. But I think in the case of CORAF, we'll have to go the second or third step, because they have been ASTI, I mean, under IFPRI, used as a public good, and then AIS has its own format. And I think we will learn from those two and see, and particularly with the emerging data use, data security within that context. And the other important thing is that CORAF, like I said, is transforming itself into a knowledge hub. And we want to see how we can capitalize on that for the benefit of the people in the region. But what is important is that you want to make sure that this service, the product, will be able to help and impact on the livelihoods of people in the region. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then thank you, all of you, for reminding us about the public goods nature of this, and its global public goods relevance, I think, is one of the reasons why I think it's so critical from the standpoint of a CGIAR donor and the system. I'd like now, we have a couple more questions, so we want to move quickly. Raghunath Godake says, both ASTI project and IFPRI and APARI have emphasized the institutionalization of ASTI at the regional levels, and the future looks great. How do we see future developments in terms of APARI capacity, not only to continue the current efforts of data and information collection, but also to undertake data analysis to help individual countries in policy formulations? So maybe on this one, let's have both Ravi and Pandian quickly comment, please.
Yeah, actually, the very strength of this entire ASTI network is like, it is not just data collection, it provides a framework for data analysis as well. Like, so the structural backbone it provides for automatic analysis, and then how to draw new insights, the framework provides for it. Like, so indirectly the platform itself builds the capacity of the people to draw new insights. So that way, any new country should not be having an issue on that. Like, and even the experiences and success stories of how these new insights have transformed into better policies, evidence-driven, evidence-based policy making, those success stories will be the examples for the new people to new countries to emulate.
You showed that great dashboard. Can you just say a little bit more about how that connects to then policy formulation? Have you seen that in action? Have you seen it happen?
Yeah. Currently, we have only visualized the scope for it, because it's only hardly just, we have completed building it, put all the data inputs, and we have seen what additional data inputs will be required, provided for it, collected, and then filled it. Like, so we will be making wider sensitization, outreach, all that. Like, and we hope, like, at least institutional level, and then at the national R&D policies for agricultural sector will essentially depend on the data sets available here. Very soon we will be able to come out with success stories.
Thank you. Ravi, do you want to add 30 seconds? We really have to move.
Sure. Thank you, Rob. In fact, for data collection, now we have a capacity built in every country with whom our coordinator is working. But for data analysis, to be honest, this cannot be, we can't build capacity everywhere. It's a very special set of skills. And we had been relying upon one Mr. Alexandro in IFPRI, Washington, who had been helping us with the whole data analysis along with Garshan. And what we had been planning, which we could not accomplish in the first phase, is having a center of excellence for data analysis in Asia. And so we are looking at the countries which are performing very well, where they are keen interest to really go for analytical part of it. So maybe in the second phase, we may come into a hub or a center of excellence for data analysis within Asia.
Thank you, Ravi. I'm going to just try to combine the last couple questions. One is other regions. Latin America and the Caribbean have been mentioned. Central Asia and Eastern Europe have been mentioned from a colleague, I think at FAO, Nevena Alexandrova Stefanova, and Eugenia Saini asks about the Latin America and the Caribbean. So could you, maybe I'll turn back to Gert on this one, but also what about data quality control? Could you say something about that too, Gert?
Okay, well, thanks. Yeah, so like ASTI has a global mandate, right? So we try to cover the entire developing world, low and middle income countries, but of course we're very dependent on donor funding for our activities. And as Channing pointed out in his few words, we're currently really looking for sustained funding to continue our activities. And currently some parts of the world aren't covered, unfortunately, but we're doing our best in the coming months, year, with all the changes in the 1CGIAR upon us as well, to really secure funding for this global coverage, because that's kind of the strength of ASTI, to have this global data set with internationally comparable indicators. When it comes to quality control, we have various internal quality control mechanisms. In most countries, this is not the first time we do a survey round. So we have all these historical data, so we can merge the new data with these historical data and perform various data quality checks. But it's there's too much detail to explain now, and I know we're running out of time, but yeah, we have various mechanisms in place.
Thank you, Gert. We do have to end it. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank the TAP chair and vice chair, Ravi Khetarpal and Guido Bonatti. Thanks to the secretariat at TAP, Sevaraju Ramaswamy, Manuela Bucciarelli, Giulia Palestini, and Cristiano Consolini. And thank you to, especially to Channing Arndt and Gert-Jan Stach, and also to my colleagues here in USAID, Clara Cohen, Jessica Bagdonis, Margaret Chroma, and also to Keith Fugly, our great collaborator at USDA's Economic Research Service. So it's been a wonderful morning. I know we have a hard stop. Thank you all for joining us. I think we'll find ways to remember these questions. They were very insightful. The questions that came this morning about, where the opportunities lie, and Pandian, pointed to that, and Ravi pointed to that, and Mina and Abdullah all commented on that. So thank you all, and best luck with the developing ahead, and we're happy to be a partner to it.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining. It's great to see everyone. I like this.
Can we have a group photo when all the videos are on? Manuela.
All right, keep your cameras on.
Could you please take a picture?
Oh, there's Abdu. Hey, Abdu, I was thinking of you. I don't want to, as long as the Zoom gods let us keep going, we should take a picture, yes. I don't know how to do that, but it sounds like somebody does. Ilka, your camera, there you go. There, okay. Malu, great to see you. All right. Oh, I like
Good to see you, man, Rob.
Julia, you're hiding off camera.
Me?
There you are. There you are.
She's the one taking the picture.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
We see Silvaraju here.
Hello, Malu.
Jessica, we don't see you.
Abdullah Adams, put your head up a little higher. Just raise your head a little bit. We can only see the bottom of you. There you go. Okay.
Julia, you're twice.
Yeah, I'm twice in the picture, yeah. Okay, done.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Rob.
I really enjoyed it.
Bye, Silvaraju also.
Thank you so much, Rob. Bye. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Congratulations to all. Bye-bye.